Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan and welcome to the latest episode of our sports show. As you know, we've been previewing and airing our special radio documentary that's coming up later on. And we're delighted to be speaking to renowned rugby stars from all the Northern Hemisphere countries: England, Wales, Ireland, Scotland, France, Italy, and the Southern Hemisphere countries, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and Argentina, in a series that we call Global Rugby Legends, My Life in Rugby. We'll be looking back at the career stories, how they began, their most prominent moments in their rugby career, and obviously the highs and lows that came with it. And we're delighted to have an Irish representative on this evening, Ireland's own. He was probably renowned as probably one of the stalwarts of the hookers in terms of Irish rugby in the 90s and 2000s. Himself and Keith Wood. Keith Wood had the baldness of Keith Wood, but there was also the mullet of Shane Byrne that was most recognisable all across the Six Nations throughout the 2000s. And once he stepped into the frame, once taking Keith Wood's spot, he never sort of looked back. Shane, but I'm just going to start off for you, Shane, just talking about rugby, because rugby came later on for you in your career. Growing up, you grew up in Wicklow. You grew up in a place called Aughrim, the heart of Wicklow football sort of country, the heart of sort of Gaelic country. I suppose I'd say a good bit away from the hustle and bustle of Dublin and the private schools and colleges. Aughrim is a sort of rural enough sort of place. So were you came from a big GA family growing up? Was your father local parishioners? Was that the thing to play for your local Wicklow GA football team, Aughrim, and then to try and play with the Wicklow under 14s and Wicklow under 16s up along? Was that the goal for a young Shane Byrne? And how did rugby fall into place, and how did rugby get into this picture?
Yeah, I grew up Gaelic and hurling and community games and everything like that. That's where I grew up, and it was only when I went up to school up in Dublin that I was introduced to rugby. So yeah, like all the ambitions I had followed through with the Gaelic setup. There's no doubt about that. And when I went up to Dublin, I started playing. It was only about 12, 13 when I started playing rugby, and I was absolutely cat at it. Terrible. I could not get it together at all. And it wasn't until the age of about 17, 18 that the penny dropped. And that's the key, was that, when the penny dropped, it dropped very well. And it was something that all the way through I had done athletics. I know many people won't believe me, but I was a sprinter in school. And so I had a little bit of advantage when I finally got rugby, and particularly as a front row player. And yeah, it just flew on from there, from the age of about 18.
And Shane, were you a talented Gaelic footballer growing up as well? Were you in the possibility of playing for Wicklow underage? Were you talked up? What position did you play in terms of Gaelic football? And did those Gaelic football skills transfer over for you in terms of rugby when you started playing rugby then?
Well, yeah, they definitely started. No, I would have been standard, nothing exceptional. There's no doubt about that. I suppose the confidence that I needed to play at sport at any sort of level kind of came along with at the age of about 17, 18. I was probably a bit too unassuming to be excelling at anything at the time. The only thing I was still good at was the athletics. That I was very good at athletics, regularly doing very well at that. But it was, I suppose, the same confidence that did see me through in the rugby probably hadn't come about when I was still playing Gaelic and hurling. But hurling, I reckon, is the greatest sport on the planet, bar none.
Okay. And Shane, obviously you went to Blackrock College, Dublin as well. What were your ambitions in terms of academic sort of career-wise? Had you ambitions to go into banking? Had you ambitions to become mechanical engineering? What were your sort of goals, obviously? Because rugby, obviously, it's a 1%er's game, as you know yourself. But many people only make it at the elite level. What was the goal from what did mother and daddy wanted Shane Byrne to be when he sort of grew up?
Well, I listen, I wasn't much of an academic. I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, so that's what I ended up doing after rugby, or after school, should I say. And that's a bit ironic saying that about Blackrock. But Yeah, there was no direct ambitions. It was just to get through it. I was in boarding school and and I absolutely loved it. It was loved it from day one, and it was something that I fit well into. The sport was just part of why I really enjoyed being there. And you got to remember when you come out of in the early 90s, rugby was still completely amateur, completely. And so ambitions was only just to achieve. And obviously you wanted to do that in rugby, but you can't say that there was anything that you wanted to make it a job, right? And we still had to go out and get a profession and start working, and that's what we did.
And Shane, in terms of, you mentioned that obviously you were renowned as a hooker, but growing up being in the front row, were you adjust to all types of positions? Did you play flanker? Did you play lock? Did you get a grasp of the whole aspects of scrums and lineouts and what it meant to be? Or did you find yourself any time of thrust backwards into the backs, or was it always moving around the sort of forward positions?
More the forwards, but because obviously I could run, I played in the centres a little bit as well, but very, very quickly settled on the front row. But like it was thrown up the air because my first year on the schools team, I came back and he could have said, like I said, I can play centre, back row, prop, hooker, wherever you want me to play. And he just happened to say hooker, the coach, Vinnie Cunningham at the time. And Lord knows what would have happened if he hadn't chosen that. And, the rest we say is history.
And I suppose, Shane, in terms of club rugby, and obviously you were beginning to make your way in terms of Leinster, then obviously it's the next sort of step for you and sort of breaking through at Leinster. And obviously Keith was below at Munster at the sort of time and he was sort of well established. Did you give a second much thought? Were you just really focused on that sort of Leinster career? Obviously being a Leinster man, playing for your province, obviously a great a tradition, a great province that is Leinster rugby as well. Well, if it turned out that you only played for Leinster, would you still be a very sort of happy man, or was that burning desire to there, right, I can push Keith, I'm just as good as Keith, when as I get that opportunity, I'll take it?
Oh, well, no, Keith wouldn't have been on the radar at that time at the start. You got to remember is that back then, the provinces, it hadn't really happened, hadn't really taken off. They were always there. You'd play about 3 or 4 games a year from them, mainly the interpros. And Irish rugby hadn't really decided if it was going to go the club route like England or go the provincial route, with the RFU sitting on top. And thankfully, that's the route they went, which is ironically the perfect professional structure for when the game did go professional. But ambition never led on. It was always the next step. You always wanted to play the best game you could play in what you were playing in. And if there was another step to take, you wanted to take that step and get up there. So initially it was obviously, get on the senior club team. Then it was get up to Leinster, and then it started representative rugby and all the underage stuff and the colleges and universities. And then up to, hopefully the A team and on to the Irish team.
Yeah, and obviously playing in that Leinster team with the likes of Malcolm Kelly and other renowned sort of players of that quality as well. And you're obviously playing a different sort of brand of rugby to what the Munster rugby was playing. Those provincial battles, when you did play for Leinster as well, did you revel in that sort of heated derby going up against guys that you might have played with the A team? Was that the be all and end all for you guys, those provincial sort of derbies in terms of obviously we played English sides and Scottish club sides, but those provincial games, were they the be all and end all in terms of season? They're the ones that you really look forward to.
Absolutely, and they still are. You know what I mean? For the players nowadays, they still are the cracking games. Okay, they're not quite what they used to be, but yeah, as I've always said, the people you want to lose to least are the people you know the best. And if you know guys from playing representative rugby with them, you do not want to lose to them. And ironically, back when I started, it was about 92, 93 when I started playing with Leinster, and Ulster were the dominant team back then. And we started to beat them. I think we were the first to beat them in Ravenhill, and clocking nearly 10 years in around 94. And it wasn't until the late 90s that Munster really started to dominate, and they went on the run that they did, as we all know, in Europe. And we kind of just didn't take that step as quick as we should have. And yeah, there was no doubt that their success was driving on the competition with, you know, between Leinster and just wanting to achieve. It was developing massive hunger there.
And Shane, once you got called up to the Ireland squad and that opportunity came about in that World Cup qualifier against Romania for you to grab that jersey, it was almost like a stepping into something that you stepped into at your comfort. It almost felt it was like no nerves, that you were sort of waiting for that opportunity to arrive. And when it arrived, it was probably like the perfect timing for you. It didn't come too early and it probably didn't come too late either.
Well, it certainly didn't come too bloody early. I was 30 years of age. Well, yeah, like I first got in the Irish squad in 1993, and I was never really out of it for a huge amount of time. And it was 2001 when I got my first cap, so it was a bloody long wait. I was leapfrogged by loads and loads and loads of different hookers. I didn't suit. I wasn't the flavour of the month, put it that way. Twice I was on the tour in '94 to Australia. I was in the World Cup in '95 in South Africa. Didn't get on the pitch, but twice afterwards told to get my hair cut. I, of course, said no, and then was immediately dropped. And so there were loads of things going on. And eventually it came about in 2000 that the opportunity came around. But like I was playing on the A team for, you know, as I said, 8-9 years, and spanned a huge amount of time. So by the time it came around, to say I was ready was an understatement. I had been very, very much waiting on that. Yeah.
And I suppose, Shane, in terms of the British and Irish Lions 2005, 4 appearances for that, it's something unique. And everyone that I spoke to the Northern Hemisphere, they all say the Lions, being a part of the Lions, it's something that means as much to me as a World Cup. It means as much to me as a Six Nations, 5 Nations. It means as much to me as 5 or 6 tries to score, to have that be known to be one of the best players from the 4 Nations, to go down and have that army to come together and take on probably the elite of the Southern Hemisphere. Was that your sort of feeling for you? Is that probably still one of the most proudest moments when you realised that you were going to be a British and Irish Lion?
Yeah, it's something that honestly I can say that I never dreamt of. Because your ambition is, you know, to when you dream is to play for Ireland. That's where you want to be. But the Lions always was something that was, you know, way in the distance. That's where the legends live. That's where the Willie John McBrides and JPR Williams, that's where they all live. And then all of a sudden you're playing for Ireland and you're aware there's a Lions tour around the corner, and you start to allow yourself to think that you might get to be on it and to get to be selected. And then, yeah, look, getting picked is something else. It's absolutely amazing experience. You know, it's, you know, just to realize, I remember when they sat us down when we landed in New Zealand, and they sat us down, they said to us, right, you are now a Lion. You know, no one can ever take that away from you. And it's that kind of realization in it that this is a tag that's going to be happily with you for the rest of your life. But then again, when you get there, it's still the same thing. You're still a professional athlete. The competitiveness kicks in, and you have to get on that test site. That's what you need to do. And you know, the work continues. And thankfully I did. I you know, played a part in all the tests, which is, you know, just an absolutely amazing experience.
And I suppose in terms of that, Shane, obviously in Ireland, so you're so used to the generals like O'Gara in the backs and probably giving the orders, and O'Connell's in the front. Now you come to the Lions and you're training and you're working, and probably Johnny Wilkinson is giving the orders, and maybe it's Alan Wynne Jones is giving the orders. Is that something that takes time to adjust in training, or is it refreshing to hear different guys be under structure and getting that sort of mentality, getting the different leaders that you would have gone toe to toe against, and you would say I wonder what it'd like to be beside Halloween Jones, or these players like Scott Murray from Scotland, or taking directions from Johnny Wilkinson. Is that unique and as well? Is it enjoyable?
That's the challenge that is set for all Lions teams. You know what I mean? It is such a hard thing to pull four teams together and to get them to mash into a side that trust each other and will fight very hard for each other. You know, that's the challenge more than anything, because look, if you look at just a flick of it, you would think, gosh, the best of four countries should easily beat one country, but it's not. In rugby, it's so hard to make that work. And there were a lot of things got wrong in our tour, and you know, there should have been a lot more bonding and camaraderie done before, during, and but you know, it's still ultimately when you put that red jersey on, you're working together, and the symmetry mightn't be there, mightn't be as slick as what you're used to, but you're still very, very proud to be there, no matter who you're standing beside.
And Shane, 2 tries for you. 2 of them came against Wales in the same game of your 4 tries. And what you start to remember, is it unique for you? Obviously, you scored many tries in your career, but scoring in the start of 5 Nations against Wales. In terms, did you take the rugby ball home with you that night after scoring the 2 tries? Did it have to be wrestled out of your gear bag coming out of the stadium?
Yeah. Not quite like that, but there were, it was absolutely fantastic. It was one of those games that we were on our way. We won the Triple Crown that year in 2004, and it was just one of those games that everything clicked. As we all know, the Welsh are hard to play home or away, and we had done our homework. We knew what we had to do, and going at them very, very early via them all was something we were going to do. Like, I was in charge of the lineouts and the scrums when I was playing, and that was a serious target that we made, and it worked. Like, we won the game. You know, Brian Driscoll scored 2 tries, and I think there was one other as well. So very, very successful day. But me, just to get my 2 little tries, I was very happy with myself. I remember them that they were much further out the pitch from. I think they were only a couple of yards away, unfortunately. But listen, I'll take them. They were absolutely fantastic.
And Shane Byrne, now, finally, if you looked in the mirror and you saw the rugby player of maybe 10 years ago or so, I probably coming on that sort of era now, and you said a few words to him, and you probably said 2 sentences to summarize his rugby career and summarize that person, what would those 2 sentences read to Shane Byrne, the rugby player?
Oh, for God's sake. 2 words, probably: patient and belligerent. You know, just would not give up. And you know, thankfully I didn't, because it crossed my mind many a time when I couldn't make that step up to Ireland, and I was very ready to blame everyone else for why it wasn't happening. But eventually the realization, through a grizzly old coach, Joe Mack, who I used to have, told me to cop on and stop worrying about the uncontrollables and just make yourself as good as you can possibly be, just in case opportunity knocks. And thankfully it did, and thankfully I was ready.
Well, indeed, it did. Opportunity did knock for you, Shane Byrne, in terms of your own Irish international career. 41 appearances in total, 15 points, 4 tries. British and Irish line as well in 2005. Played many a times in 6 Nations, represented his country in a World Cup as well. Shane Byrne, an absolute pleasure talking to you. And you did make a revival for Ockram as well in the junior football later on in the year as well. So definitely the GA is still in your blood as well. But for the moment, Shane Byrne, take care. God bless. Stay safe.
Take care. Thank you.